but it's taken down very quickly by OG. When she says, you say you don't want them to assimilate culturally, but you do want them to assimilate politically. You want them to accept the Chinese authorities as their political authority. That is impossible without giving up the basic tenets of Tibetan Buddhism. And we will see how that influences each and every clash of debate. The two clashes I'm going to talk about is one, is assimilation better than the status quo? Know that if we win this is enough, regardless of whether the situation will improve. And secondly, I want to talk about what options we are destroying forever. And if we show that those are better than what they're offering, even if what they're offering is better than the status quo, we again shouldn't. So let's start with whether this proposed assimilation is better than the status quo. Note, the main clash of this whole debate has been, will China be nicer because now people won't be separatists, because they have the one China policy and so on, or will it be worse because now it can go backseas and crack down even harder and they don't have a claim. What Anand brings you, note that opening opposition tell you that already the political situation is entwined with religion. The closing government agree with that and say, look, this is the problem. The problem is that because of the political situation, Tibetan Hinduism is constantly related to that issue. It is the reason why the Chinese decide they need to crack down. This is a misunderstanding of how Tibetan Hinduism works, because it is not the same as other religions. In the West, most religions have the separation between their religious beliefs and their political beliefs, right? We don't want religion in our politics. Hinduism is not like that. And as Anak tells you, it is part of the Hinduist faith to support their political leader. And you know this is true, right? The Dalai Lama is the only perfectly religious leader that is, his job is identical. It's not that he happened to be elected. His job and political position is identical. Because he is the Dalai Lama, no thank you, he leads the Hindu Tibetans. How does this change the debate? In two ways. One, note that this means that opening government's proposition is self-defeating. They are not willing for the Tibetans to give up their cultural heritage. They are not willing for them to give up their religion, right? They didn't want to propose that, and rightfully so, but they wanted to give up the political autonomy. That is impossible given the way the Tibetan system works. But note also that in terms of practicalities, all the analysis you've heard, from opening opposition, from opening government, from closing government, the plausibility of whether China will crack down or whether it will be nicer because we're not separatists is influenced immensely by the question of whether the Tibetans are genuinely a peace-loving people that will fully accept and no parts of their religion will threaten China, or whether the core of their belief, even if they accept, even if their leadership accepts, even if the people say they accept temporarily, if their texts, if their holy scriptures say that the true authority in terms of politics is not the Chinese state, but the Dalai Lama, that is a huge problem, and the whole government case is implausible. It is implausible for China to be okay with the Tibetans just saying, fine, we'll accept your laws for now. Opening.
If your characterization of Tibetan Buddhism is correct, right, that it's inextricably linked with political leadership, you've never lived under a political framework, how do you account for millions of Tibetans living peacefully in every other country in the world within their political system?
Because, like many religious groups, they put their religious demandings before the law, like happens in many other countries. And when you're a minority, that's the way you live. But when you have your own whole area that you control, that is a threat to the state. Okay, let's move on. Secondly, note that also gives you why we already lose what we already have and the pressures that we have today. From closing government, we get this idea that says, but China doesn't give... No, first, let's talk about why Western pressures are dependent on whether they fight, right? Because we know that, like they said, the West doesn't give a shit, right? But we know that no matter how much China cracks down on Tibetans, it doesn't matter enough until a priest self-immolates, right? We've all seen the pictures of a person burning himself to death, and we have not seen the pictures of... we know that priests have seen that until they protest in the most horrifying way No one cares. So we see that it is effective.
Yeah, on that.
But they said they don't give a shit anyway. There's no influence. Their case doesn't make sense. Why? Because they themselves said that already China gives autonomy, and their own analysis tells you why China could just beat the shit out of Tibet and no one could stop them. Then why do they give them the autonomy we hear from closing government? Obviously they care. And why do they care? Because you can trade things, right? China cares about multiple things. We'll talk about in the next session. Let's talk about what options we are destroying. Look, so opening opposition comes up and saying why we need independence, and there's a chance for that because they have more communication. Opening government say, look, China never gives up because of the one China policy, and closing government said that they won't survive even if they're independent. And that gives you why we don't need to prove independence to prove to you that there's a chance for improvement in Tibet. Why? One is because we see that more and more people get autonomy, and we see that there is rising pressure in the West, that we will lose if we go with their side, but there is rising pressure in the West. We see that in South Sudan, we see that in the Bas, we see that in many cases. But note also that she tells you that China now cares more and more about other things because it's becoming world policy. Note that closing government concede that, and this is important. They concede that when they say the Chinese care more about international borders and security than they care about oppressing the Tibetans. We think they can't eat their cake and have it too. There is a reason to believe, because of their own analysis, that the Tibetans will now have a chance for more autonomy. The only pressure for that is the pressure from the West that we talked about, that we've just explained why we are losing if Tibetans do not do what they need to bring that into the international sphere. Ladies and gentlemen, this does not support what the Tibetans perceive to be their cultural identity. It is taking away the only effective tool by government's own analysis. They don't have military defense. They don't have the Chinese interests in mind. But what they do have, and what comes out of government's analysis, the only thing they have is the West supports. That is what we're losing today. We beg you to oppose.